Welcome back. I'm Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind. Arise on the wings of your mind. In our last broadcast, we asked the question, why do you think you were born? So it seems that somewhat appropriate that since we dealt with the beginning of life, why don't we go ahead and deal with the end of life, known as death. What is your relationship with death? Now, most of us have a I'd rather not deal with it, I'd rather not think about it attitude when it comes to death, but we can't completely ignore it. I mean, it does come to all of us. It is inevitable. So what is it about death that makes us so afraid? It makes us tremble at the thought of it. It's because we believe it's the end, and because despite all the grandiose declarations that there is life after death, most of us really don't believe that. We think that it's the end and there's nothing left after that. We'll go into the darkness, the non-existence. Yeah, many people find it hard to believe in the midst of legends that tell us that if we're good, we'll be transported to this place where the streets are paved with gold. But most of us aren't good enough for that, are we? We think we're going to go to that other place, the place of eternal damnation and fire. Yeah. So how do you feel about your eventual death? You know, death is a mystery. We don't really know what comes after we cross over that line known as death. As I said, a large number of people have some religious upbringing, and in that religious upbringing we know about heaven and hell, and that heaven is this idyllic place with wonderful trees and flowers and streets paved of gold, whereas the other one is filled with lakes of fire and damnation and torture and misery. But is there any way to actually know what comes after death? Well, we've been told that we're entering into an age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. And one of the promises of the age of Aquarius is that all that is hidden will be revealed. And we can sort of see that happening now. You know, people who were hiding things all of a sudden are being exposed. So, and secrets are being revealed. So, yeah, that part of it is coming true. It's also said that there's going to be an elevation of our consciousness, that millions of people will discover their own spirituality and become more enlightened. Now that's a large order, but it is happening little by little. You know, you wouldn't be here if you weren't seeking to be elevated spiritually and find some enlightenment. So yeah, it's happening. And you know, more and more people in this society are beginning to discover the power of meditation. Or another way of putting it is they're learning to quiet their minds, because they're learning to shut off the chatter of the monkey mind that is always going and always critical and always criticizing and always talking. They're learning to quiet that down because it is of no benefit to them to listen to that constant chatter. And so they're approaching this thing called meditation in a number of ways. I mean, you can sit quietly and, you know, cross your legs or sit in a chair and meditate, but there are also other ways of doing it. You know, this thing called contemplation, where you're just tuning into the world around you quietly, or yoga, or tai chi, or walking by the ocean or by the lake, or walking through a forest. or gardening. They're all available. The point is to take you out of your current state of consciousness, your monkey mind, if you will, and to take you into a quieter place. And in that quieter place, you begin to make contact with the power that is within you, the spirit that is within you, the peace that is within you. And that peace is our higher power. And that higher power is infinite intelligence. You know, we are all individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And as we get more in touch with that infinite intelligence, as we get more in touch with that peace that is deep within us, that quiet, then we can better understand the words of Jesus when he spoke in the book of Luke, chapter 17, verse 21, when he said, "For indeed the kingdom of God is within you." Now, we haven't understood that for so long, at least not the general public, that the kingdom of God is within you. We've always separated God out to that place where God is separate and sitting on a throne and looking over us from that faraway place, and choosing to intervene or not intervene, depending on what the circumstance may be. Of course, the circumstances that we may deem where God should intervene, the circumstances we call emergencies, the circumstances that require some help, some divine intervention, well, God doesn't often show up at those places. We are left to fend for ourselves. But as we begin to lift up our consciousness, as we begin to access that peace within us, we begin to know that God, or infinite intelligence, is always there. And it's always actually working. And if we can calm our minds enough to see the little things that are going in our favor, if we can calm our minds enough to see the signs that the divine is working for us, then we'll be actually much, much more peaceful, much stronger in our spirituality, and therefore much higher in our consciousness. So, yeah, the age of Aquarius is going to elevate the consciousness of the planet, and it is happening right here, right now, on a minute-by-minute basis. So welcome to the world of higher consciousness. But again, what about death? What are we dealing with when it comes to death? Well, actually, there seems to be a lot of new information about the subject of death, about what happens after you die. Scientific information, which in this culture that worships the scientific, it is very important that science will confirm what deep inside we already know. So let's talk further about it on the other side of these messages. I'll be right back. Whether you're building wealth or anticipating a major financial transaction, you can benefit greatly by consulting with a personal, professional, licensed financial advisor. A personal, professional, licensed financial advisor who focuses on you, who understands your unique concerns, who relates to your special goals, who cares about your success. Afroeconomics is a strategic financial program designed for the advancement of Black wealth in America and abroad. It was created by J.B. Bryan, CEO of J.B. Bryan Financial Group, an independent registered investment advisory firm licensed in Virginia, Washington, D.C., New York, and Maryland. Being Black does not condemn you to a life of financial uncertainty. Afroeconomics can show you the way out and up. If this message has meaning and value for you, please click on the thumbs up button below. If you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe. You can do so by clicking on the logo at the lower right-hand corner of this video. Remember, I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions. Please use the chat box on the right side of the screen, or you can use the comments section below this video. The objective of this ministry is to empower you and your life. If our teaching is of value to you, then we invite your financial support. You can support this ministry by using the Cash App at $Andre Amron, or by going to our website at bozemandevelopment.com and clicking on the Please Donate link. Thank you for your support. So let's talk about death. One thing I can say is that when you're around people who are dying, you begin to take on a different perspective in relation to it. Now, as a minister, I have been with people who are preparing to cross over to the other side of the veil. And for some, it was an act of terror. It was if they were standing on a high diving board and being told to jump, which is a terrifying experience. I remember my first time on a high diving board, because all you can see is the bottom of the pool because the water is clear. So it looks a whole lot further than it actually is to jump. It's scary. And that's the way people are with death sometimes. It's that terror of going across. And so there's a lot of fear associated with it, and they're paralyzed with that fear. And they're fighting against the inevitable with all their might until finally they can no longer resist and they get snatched away. But that doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen with everybody. Some make the leap with an attitude of joyous relief as they move into their new phase of existence. And still there are others who just quietly slip away. They slip into a state of deep sleep and they just don't wake up. So there are a number of ways in which people approach death and cross over into death. So, we're all different, and therefore we respond differently to the situation. But one thing that has struck me is that people who are sick and get near to death begin to have visions and visitations. It's a strange thing, but you'll begin to notice if you're around people who are preparing to die, that they'll begin to talk to people who you cannot see. They begin to have dreams, and these dreams are so vivid that they're more real than physical life. They'll reach out to them. They'll converse with them. These people and beings that we cannot see, but they definitely do. And for some, that is a comforting experience when they're holding those conversations with people who have passed earlier, and their relatives and friends who are there to escort them into the new phase of their lives. It gives them a sense of peace, a sense of comfort, knowing that there's someone there waiting for them. But still others cling to that fear of the impending separation from the life they've known into a life possibly that they have not yet experienced. Dr. Christopher Kerr Dr. Kerr was a physician, a doctor in a hospice in Buffalo, New York. Now, a hospice is a place, a healthcare facility, where people who are at the end of their life are treated. They're cared for that. Now, in this place of final treatment, palliative, I think they call it palliative treatment. These people, some recover and end up going back home, but most of them in a hospice are going to die in the hospice. So during Dr. Kerr's tenure at the Buffalo Hospice, he witnessed the death of hundreds of patients. I mean, he was there for several years. And while he was there, he decided to conduct a study of how people approach the end of life. And in his study, interviews and all that, he discovered that most of them begin to have what we may refer to as visions a few weeks before they die. Now, in those visions, they meet old friends, they meet relatives, they meet beings who are there, who are very high level and comforting to them, beings of light, if you will, angels, if you will. They get to review their lives, the traumatic events from their lives, and most of them come into a state of peace with their lives. All the old grudges that they were holding are released, and so they end up facing death with a peaceful state of mind. It's fascinating. He wrote about his study and his experiences with people who are dying, and it was in a book called "Death is But a Dream." Death is but a dream, and so he shared many stories about the dreams that those people had. Another story about the approach someone had to death was the story of Steve Jobs. You know, the billionaire co-founder of Apple Computer. There was an article that appeared in the Guardian newspaper. Now, the Guardian is a newspaper that is based in London, England, but it publishes an edition here in the United States. And so this article appeared about 11 years ago. And what it did was it recounted the deathbed experience of Steve Jobs as reported by his sister Simpson. She was at his hospital bedside when he died. Now, according to Simpson, the article states this: after making it through one final night, he began to slip away. His breath indicated an arduous journey, some steep path, some altitude he seemed to be climbing. But with that will and that work ethic, there was strength. There was also sweet Steve's capacity for wonderment, the artist's belief in the ideal, the still more beautiful ladder. She goes on to say Steve's final words hours earlier were monosyllables, repeated 3 times. So he said this 3 times before crossing over to his final stage here in life, in physical life. So before he embarked, he looked at his sister, Patty. Then for a long time he looked at his children, and then at his life partner, Laureen. And then he looked over their shoulders, past them. He looked past them. And when he looked past them, he saw something that made him say, "Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow." What did he see? What did he see? Whatever he saw, it was awe-inspiring. whatever he saw did not seem to be frightening. It seemed to be elating, something that was uplifting, something that was grandiose. Oh, wow. So what is it like on the other side? Is it really an oh, wow experience? Well, there are those who have had the experiences of being clinically dead for a brief period and then returning to life. And what they reported of the things they saw and the sensations they had or they felt was fascinating to some. Now, the majority of the people who heard their reports many decades ago, actually, who heard their reports chose to attribute those stories to merely the brain having hallucinations. And so they dismissed the stories that these people told because they were locked into this materialistic view of the world, and they had no belief in the possibilities of there being a world beyond what they could see and hear and taste and feel. They just not compute. However, there were also those who saw things differently. Those who asked the question, what if the people who had that experience were telling the truth? What if their experiences were real? What if there really is something amazing on the other side? So enough people asked that question that scientifically trained people began to take another look. And in taking another look, they started studying those experiences a few decades ago, back in the 80s and 90s. They began studying those experiences of people dying and then coming back. And what they discovered is that there weren't just a few people who were having those experiences. There were actually thousands of people who were having those experiences. Thousands of people who were dying and coming back and telling the same kind of stories. And not only were those people dying and telling those stories, but they found that there was patterns to those experiences. They found that there was a similarity to those experiences. And so they began to write them down. They began to study them. They began to document them. And so the result was that there were so many of them that they gave them a name. They called them near-death experiences. Near-death experiences. Also called NDEs. You know how we like to abbreviate everything. So these NDEs began to be studied, and those studies began to be reported, and those reports began to appear in peer-reviewed scientific journals in which scientifically trained people were documenting thousands of NDEs. And now there are numerous books, reports, videos published on the subject of NDEs. There's now even a Netflix documentary called Surviving Death. So, what did people see on the other side? Well, most of the people questioned describe being met by beings of light, being accompanied by this loving presence, by experiencing love so profound that it just filled them. A love so profound that they were just overwhelmed by it. They had never felt that kind of love, that kind of unconditional love, that kind of powerful love ever in their physical lives. It was amazing what they felt. Yeah. And the being of light guided them through the experience. Some experienced, there was a reception committee. of loving spirits, of the reception committee, of old friends and family waiting for them to be there, who welcomed them to the other side. They saw lights and colors that were more spectacular than anything they had ever seen on earth. Wonderful visions, beautiful. They heard music that was so exquisite that they could actually feel that they themselves were part of the music. It was all-encompassing. Thousands of people experiencing NDEs, near-death experiences. They reported feeling a sense of total freedom, something they had never felt before in their lives. They were no longer tied to their physical bodies. They were no longer restricted by their physical bodies. They were free. They were much bigger than they ever imagined themselves to be. There was no more pain, no more limitation of movement. They could move wherever they wanted to move to. They could go wherever they wanted. All they had to do was think of being there, and they were there instantaneously. It was amazing to them. But most importantly, they realized that they were still themselves, that they had not disappeared, that they had not slipped away into nothingness. They were still themselves. They were still very self-aware. In fact, they were more aware of themselves than they'd ever been while they were in a body. They were totally self-aware. Now, I'm a member of a spiritualist church here in the Buffalo, New York area, and we spiritualists believe in life after death, of course, and in communicating with those who have died. So we have a set of principles that we live by, and in that statement of principles, which was created by the National Association of Spiritualist Churches, principle number 4 states, we affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continues after the change called death. And that has been confirmed by those who have gone across and found that they were still themselves. They were still me. And then principle number 5 states, we affirm that the communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by the phenomena of spiritualism. Now, I have had the experience of having, through medium, having friends deliver messages to me, come over and give me some guidance. And I know they were my friends, and I know they were real because the medium described the person to whom they were talking. Descriptions identify who you're getting the message from, and the descriptions were right on. These people who were giving me the message, who were you serving as the messenger, had never met the friends and family that came to me from my past, but their descriptions were so perfectly true that there was no doubt that the person who was talking to them from the other side was really who they claimed to be. I also remember working with a former member of my church parish who was in the hospital and getting ready to pass over. He was so frightened of dying that he was almost paralyzed. He was just paralyzed with fear. And so I remember that I, along with a couple of other ministers, through hands-on healing, worked with him for 3 hours, actually. Worked to heal that fear, worked to at least get him relaxed enough to pass over quietly, peacefully. Finally, after 3 hours of working with him, he relaxed some extent. And then within the hour he passed over. That was an experience. But what I recall is that a few hours later, we had one of our mediums, this was in California, we had one of our mediums check on him to see how he was doing on the other side. She was saying not only was he peaceful, was he okay now with the transition, but he told her if he had known it was going to be this good, he would have left a long time ago. So he was holding back because he was afraid. And when he crossed over, he was met with joy. He met old friends, he met family. It was a reunion on the other side that he had been denying himself by holding on so tight to life, a life that he was not happy with, a life where he was miserable, but afraid to let it go. You know, we have been conditioned to be fearful. We have been conditioned to be afraid of death. We have been conditioned to be afraid of losing our jobs. We've been conditioned to be afraid of life. We've been conditioned to be afraid of the dead. You know, horror movies fill our airways, fill our movie houses, and convince us that there are angry ghosts all around us waiting to pounce on us at any time and murder us or inflict pain upon us. There's so many horror movies out there seeking to scare us and actually effectively scaring us that it's criminal. It's actually criminal. I have watched movie releases over the past few years, and I noticed that the influx of horror movies is increasing rapidly. There are more horror movies out there than there are movies about love. There are more horror movies out there than there are movies about people living a life. Not only are there horror movies, there's those action movies with incredible body counts as people get killed right and left. Look at John Wick. Wow, he's killing people. He's killing. They're exploding cars. It is almost pornographic. But we as a population seem to be addicted to those. We seem to be addicted to that adrenaline rush that comes with the fear induced by the horror or the revenge that the hero gets on people who have done him wrong. But we're so addicted that the filmmakers are trying to outdo themselves, you know, because once you hit a level of horror, then it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it doesn't have impact anymore. So they got to come up with something a little more horrifying, a little more gory. And it just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating to make us scared, to make us afraid. So we're afraid of everything. We're afraid of venturing out, of seeing something new, of expanding our lives. We're afraid to expand because we're afraid of being hurt, I guess. We're afraid of being attacked. We're afraid of some ghost coming and destroying us in our dreams. I don't know. But in our fear of death, we are also afraid to live. And so we find ourselves often stuck in situations that are less than satisfying. Situations that demean us, situations that kill our souls, diminish us. So, when facing death, what should be a peaceful process has become an event of resistance and turmoil and fear and paralysis. And it shouldn't be that way. Because death is going to come. Death is an event that we must, each and every one of us, face at some point in our lives. I'm 80 years old. I'm getting closer to that point. I know I'm going to die sometime soon. I mean, when I say soon, it could be 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, but it's still soon, because I'm looking back 80 years. You know, I'm closer to death than I am to birth. But I'm not afraid of it, because I know it can be a very pleasant experience. But fear of death can hold you back from truly living. You know, allowing that fear to permeate your consciousness makes you overly cautious. It can lock you into situations that are not good for you, that are hurting you, that are negative toward you. You gotta stop hate. Gotta stop fearing life. Gotta be able to step out and be alive. You know, another scientific explorer of near-death experiences, Dr. Bruce Grayson, wrote a book entitled The book is called After, A-F-T-E-R. A doctor explores what near-death experiences reveal about life and beyond. So Dr. Grayson said in a recent interview that near-death experiences eliminate the fear of death, and people live a life more fully after that fear is gone. They live life more fully. He said they no longer feel addicted to worldly things, but that doesn't mean they give them up. They still exist in the world. They still are here, striving for whatever, but their striving is different. It's not that desperate striving. It's sort of like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Many of them say because they no longer feel driven to accumulate possessions, but they paradoxically feel freer to enjoy material pleasures more fully. They know they're going to leave it behind, and they know that it's no longer necessary in their lives. They know that they don't have to renounce their possessions. They just feel less attached to them. And they no longer define themselves by what they own. And so they're having more fun. And as a result of having more fun, they're actually attracting. They're open now. They're attracting more good things into their life. More material pleasures into their life because they're open and no longer afraid. Fear shuts you down. Life is an experience to be enjoyed and appreciated. You know that? Being open and free with your heart, with yourself. It's magical. If we accept and understand that we are all one, that is, human beings, we are all one, but also we are all one with nature. Everything around us is filled with consciousness. There is no thing that does not have a consciousness. Nothing. There is no spot where God is not. There is nothing that is not God. It is all conscious. And because it is all conscious, it can respond to you. Life can respond to you. And if you're open and loving and free, then your life is going to be richer and fuller and more energetic, because everything around you is going to return that energy. And you're going to be fully in a space of uplifting consciousness. Fear closes you down and contracts you and pulls you away from all that is around you. And so you become tighter and more like a rock that sinks in water rather than like a flower that floats on the water, a flower that is filled with the beams of energetic love. That's what comes when you let go of that fear of death, because it's always there. There's no need to be afraid of dying. It can be a very pleasant experience. Now, there's no need to rush to it. I mean, it's just going to be there. There's nothing that requires you to jump on it now. Just accept that it's there, that it's going to happen, and it's okay. It's okay that you're okay, that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, and as a spiritual being you will go on and on after you drop this physical body, this impediment that it is. But remember, you're here to learn a lesson. That's what we talked about in our last broadcast. You are here to become a stronger spiritual being. You are here to elevate, to move to a higher level. So continue with your lesson, but know that you are more than your body. You have a body, but you are not your body. And remember the words at the end of my prayers: as above, so below, as within, so without. Those are actually declarations of independence, telling the world, telling you, telling the universe that you understand who and what you really are. You are an individualized expression of infinite intelligence. And that's what you're telling the world. As above, so below. I know that as I am functioning here below, I am influencing that above. As I feel and express within myself, I am influencing that which is outside of myself. As above, so below. As within, so without. You are understanding that you are in the middle of a universe of consciousness, that it surrounds you and permeates everything, everything. So the point is, when you are asked the question, what is your relationship to death? Your answer should be one of peace and open acceptance, knowing that death is just a gateway to freedom. Let's close with prayer. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence, for bringing all of us together in this life so that we may become spiritual warriors and join in the work we have come here to do. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence, for bringing us into the space of awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to life and infinite intelligence. Thank you for showing us who we really are. We open our minds and hearts to the truth of our being. We are the children of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And because we are part of the greater whole, we're beginning to understand our value to the continuity of life on this planet. As we become channels of your power, infinite intelligence, we can feel your presence within ourselves and within our lives more and more. We know that as we feel your presence within our lives every day, we will rise, because we are no longer cut off from you by being immersed in the darkness of fear, anger, and the pain of unforgiveness. So we're now restoring our connection through the grace of forgiveness, knowing that as we learn to forgive ourselves for the pain we have caused to ourselves, and as we learn to forgive those who have inflicted pain upon us, our connections will grow stronger and our lives will grow happier and healthier and more prosperous. And for this we are truly grateful. As above, so below. As within, so without. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. Thank you for spending some time with me. Thank you. I really appreciate your being here, and I look forward to seeing you at our next broadcast next week. I look forward to that. So remember, I am Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this has been ARRISE on the Wings of Your Mind. If this message has meaning and value for you, please click on the thumbs up button below. If you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe. You can do so by clicking on the logo at the lower right-hand corner of this video. Remember, I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions. Please use the chat box on the right side of the screen, or you can use the comments section below this video. The objective of this ministry is to empower you and your life. If our teaching is of value to you, then we invite your financial support. You can support this ministry by using the Cash App at $Andre Amron, or by going to our website at bozemandevelopment.com and clicking on the Please Donate link. Thank you for your support.